Okay, so yes, hello everyone, and thanks for being here. My name is Bijan Moosavi. I am an Iranian multimedia artist, and I'm based in London. I make films, music, performances, and installations which basically examine the impact of neoliberalism, mainly in the Middle East. So in the past 5-6 years, I've been basically calling myself a Muslim entrepreneur, an Islamic futurist, and in my work, I have been mainly imitating the aesthetics of the world of advertising and commerce, sci-fi movies, popular culture, and the Islamic kitsch, in order to tell dystopian tales of a fully neoliberal future in the Middle East. So these stories mainly try to demystify the neoliberal myth that the only way towards freedom and democracy in the Middle East is through the liberation of the market. 2 years ago, I made a film called Disco Islam. This film is basically a sci-fi corporate video or a science fiction commercial about a fictional nightclub from the future in the Middle East, which is built on the site of an environmental disaster, and it covers up human rights issues in the region with the help of Silicon Valley technologies. And basically the exhibition that we are sitting in at the moment at the Eastside Project Second Gallery is an immersive installation which is basically built around the Disco Islam film, and it's called Disco Islam Future Phantasmagoria. So what you're about to see is a performance in which I'll be commenting on the Disco Islam film, more or less using the structure of another popular culture format, being the YouTube commentary or reaction videos. Yeah, I'm going to basically start by playing a few minutes of the film, and then I'll basically dive right into it.
Imagine the biggest nightclub in the heart of the Middle East, where as a tourist or a local, you can take a break from your busy day and enjoy some quality time with your friends and companions. Imagine having access to branded parties in a reclaimed exotic space, complete with VIP wristbands and curated street food experiences. And imagine all of that happening just in line with cultural sensitivities of the locals, as well as the laws of an Islamic country, while at the same time keeping up with the highest standards of the entertainment industry on an international level.
When you think about Iran, one of the last things that comes to one's mind is a country famous for its nightlife. I'm about to challenge this perception and tell you why an investment in the nightlife industry in Iran has been a life-changing one. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Real Iran. I'm a Muslim entrepreneur, an Islamic futurist, and the founder of the Future Islam startup company, and I would like to tell you the story of Disco Islam. So, pretty much like its name, Disco Islam is basically all about paradoxes. Paradoxes or contradictions which in a way appear to be the inherent nature of neoliberalism, disco versus Islam. So the film begins by asking the viewers to imagine the biggest nightclub in the heart of the Middle East, disco with all the latest hip and trendy features that allows you to party as a tourist or a local in a country which is governed by the Islamic law and is well known for its strict stance over dancing and music. I don't know if you know it or not, but since the 1979 revolution in Iran, which overthrew monarchy and replaced it with an Islamic republic, nightclubs have been banned and don't exist in Iran anymore. So I myself, for instance, who have been a long-time fan of club music, experienced nightclub physically first time in Istanbul when I was 25 and when I left Iran for the very first time in my life at that age. And it was only then and afterwards that I realized that what clubbing was actually about, and that the music was only a lubricant to a communal contemporary ritual of our modern world, one which would ease the discomfort between the mind and the body and would transcend you and everyone around you beyond a state of cosmic unity, a unity which has historically challenged stereotypes, prejudices, biases, and it has subverted the establishment and the status quo. So is this what we are being promised through the Disco Islam project, an experience of unity facilitated by the club culture, which is banned under the Islamic law in Iran? Well, the Muslim entrepreneur, the Islamic futurist, and the founder of the fictional Future Islam startup company in the film seems to be quite determined that he will be able to sell this idea of an Islamic nightclub, or in other words, the Disco Islam.
Iran is a country of more than 80 million people, over 60% of which are under 30, highly educated, and consumption savvy. It is a country once called by Martin Sorrell of advertising giant WPP
the biggest untapped market before Mars and the Moon.
A country that after its 1979 revolution is going through another form of a revolution headed towards
the liberation of the market.
And add to all of that,
so after setting the tone and pitching the core idea, the film initially starts to bring some factual evidence in order to support its argument for the urgency of the Disco Islam project in Iran. So before we continue, I would like to mention one thing here, which is basically my approach to the medium or the form that I have used basically in this work of mine. As I said before, in the past 5-6 years, I have been mainly copying and reproducing aesthetics of the world of advertising and commerce, among other things. So in this film also, I have tried to copy the style and format of what's known as the corporate video. According to Wikipedia, corporate video refers to any type of non-advertisement-based video content created for and commissioned by a business, company, corporation, or organization, mainly targeted towards that company's core selling demographic or internal employees. So in order to make this film, I have looked at quite a lot of corporate films. A few examples of that we can see here. So these are basically 4 corporate videos that I've taken a lot of inspiration from. The one on the top left corner is one about the Iran Mall in Tehran, which is apparently the biggest shopping mall in the Middle East. The one on the top right is a corporate video about the Louvre Museum in Abu Dhabi in United Arab Emirates. The bottom left one is about Zaha Hadid Architects, the British architecture and design firm. And the bottom right corner one is about the Apple Park, which is the corporate headquarters of the Apple company. So here, and in this second part of the film, I have loosely basically used the information visualization format, which is quite common in corporate videos, to bring in some of the research basically behind the work. These are basically parts of my ongoing research into the project of neoliberalism in Iran, a project which was accelerated during the presidency of Hassan Rouhani in Iran, and in a way it progressed and was developed hand in hand with Iran's nuclear deal. So what happened during that time, between 2013 and 2021, was that a group of Islamic neoliberals from within the Iranian political system, most of whom rent-seeking cronies, they started working with the international community to implement neoliberal policies in Iran in return for their own profit and at the cost of mainly human rights and liberties in Iran. A similar example of this would be how the US and its European allies have been keeping a closed eye on human rights issues in Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Middle East region in return for oil and a market for weapons. So as you can see here, we have screenshots from different media outlets shaping the public opinion in favor of a neoliberal project in Iran, and at the same time, some articles and essays highlighting the issues already caused by the implementation of neoliberal policies in Iran, which have resulted in social unrest, protests, environmental disasters, and so on.
Following the success that we have been enjoying in future Islam in the past years, with projects like the Hijab Walk, Tehran's first ever fashion week, boosted with an AR catwalk that uses gorgeous models without actual bodies, Islam Got Talent, the Islamic Iranian version of the universally popular television talent show. And last, but not least,
so in this next part of the film, I have looked at some of the ways in which the neoliberal project, or as it is being referred to in the film, this Iranian dream for luxury and freedom, has actually manifested itself within the society. So here we have some real events and projects that actually have happened in Iran. Projects like a fashion show that uses augmented reality or AR technology to erase the models' bodies, an X Factor style show basically with a strong nationalist and Islamic undertone, and the Iran Mall, which is the biggest shopping mall in the Middle East. Projects, all of which the film claims to be part of the portfolio of this fictional Future Islam trademark startup company. So building up on the success of these previous projects, the talking character in the film brags about Disco Islam being the culmination of all the efforts and values at his company, Future Islam. He argues that Disco Islam is a hyper-ambitious project in which the Islamic body meets the Islamic mind, and where opportunity, commerce, and welfare go hand in hand with entertainment, culture, and religion. And if you ask why, we are only about to figure out.
Disco Islam is designed and constructed to fit perfectly with its surroundings. You might have already heard about the tragic incident of the drying of the Lake Urmia in Iran, once the second largest saltwater lake in the Middle East. A disaster which happened due to years and years of water mismanagement.
So from here on, Disco Islam, the film and not the actual project, starts to get into details about the selling points of this Iranian Islamic neoliberal nightclub from the future. And this is where the paradoxes of the Disco Islam project start to unravel and the myth of neoliberalism start to get busted. So for a starter, we have here an argument about how the mismanagement of the Iranian government in regards to the environment has resulted in the drying of the Lake Urmia, once the Middle East's second largest salt lake. And the neoliberal response to that, privatize it and turn it into a nightclub. So the site of this deserted lake has been sold to the government's cronies from the private sector for a bargain price to be turned into, as mentioned in the film, a golden opportunity for business.
Discos and clubs are almost synonymous with ideas such as freedom and liberty in our world today. That's why we brought in top-notch architects from around the world to build us a replica of the Tehran's Burj Azadi.
This next part of the film is about the architectural choices in the making of the Disco Islam nightclub. So the film argues that top-notch architects from around the world have been brought in to make a replica of the Azadi Tower. So basically, for those who don't know about the Azadi Tower, it's a monumental construct situated in Tehran. It was built in 1971, and it was renamed from Shahyad, which means the King's Memorial, to Burj Azadi, which means the Freedom Tower, after the 1979 revolution, and as a symbolic gesture to celebrate the end of the monarchy and the liberation of the Iranian people. So a replica of the Azadi Tower here at Disco Islam is said to be celebrating a new kind of freedom in the future where the film takes place. And what is this new freedom that the film is talking about? Well, basically the freedom for trade, liberty for the market, and the new liberal idea of laissez-faire. And straight after that, we realized that the dance floors at Disco Islam are separated based on male and female genders. This is also in line with legal requirements in Iran, which is based in Sharia law, and it means that most areas of the country, like schools, public transport, swimming pools, sport events, and many others, are segregated based on people's sex.
The main tower has been decorated with spectacular elements borrowed from the riches of the Islamic and Iranian culture, revitalizing a sense of national identity, while restoring our customers' pride in being Iranian and
Many political analysts, theorists, and journalists have talked about some of the issues caused as a result of decades of neoliberal policies like austerity, extreme privatization, and aggressive marketization, being the collapse of public infrastructure, severe inequalities, environmental damages, and so on. Many also believe that it is these very issues that have given us regressive setbacks like Trump, Brexit, and the rise in nationalism, or in other words, some sort of a tendency towards an illiberal liberalism. So this part of the film builds up on this idea by talking about the decorative elements which have been used across the Disco Islam nightclub. Sculptural objects which carry, as mentioned in the film, Iranian and Islamic messages and aim to revitalize a sense of national identity among the customers. You can see this basically in the use of elements which allude to the Islamic kitsch, like the roses, feathers, and the doves, as well as the Persian calligraphic sculptures hovering over their plinths, using terms and slogans like freedom, peace, joy, motivation, energy, and luxury.
Paying respect to its natural environment and climate, the silver fountain placed underneath the tower pumps up the remaining water from the Urmia Lake.
So here we have again another dodgy neoliberal response to the environmental problems caused by the incompetence and corruption of the Iranian government. The film talks about the fountain which is placed at the center of the Disco Islam nightclub right under the tower. It pumps up basically the remaining water from the dried up Urmia Lake to add a decorative element to the site. Another environmental issue that Iran has been suffering from severely in the past 2 decades is the problem with dust storms, with many towns and cities having to deal with the issue multiple times a year, and the sandstorms are mainly caused by years and years of excessive dam building and the mismanagement of water in the country. And again, the neoliberal response to tackle the issue used high-tech machinery to absorb the dust from the air and turn it into a fog-type effect similar to what fog machines make in a nightclub, so that you can, as again mentioned in the film, add to the wow factor quality of the clubbing experience and make the site communicate with its ill-fated surroundings in such a way. So here we have again another neoliberal solution addressing issues caused by neoliberalism in the first place. Something similar to using private jets to fly to Davos to talk about how to go green, or manufacturing more air conditioners to deal with the rising temperatures around the world due to global warming.
The club experience is all about the becoming one of the body and the mind. It is about sweating your way beyond the binaries of sexuality and identity. How do we go about the issue of dancing in a country overseen and governed by Islamic law?
The film finally reaches its peak in this part as it starts to talk about two of the most fundamental elements of the club culture, music and dancing. Two subjects which have been very controversial in Iran following the 1979 revolution. While music has been heavily controlled and censored under the Islamic regime, dancing has almost completely been eliminated from public life in Iran, as it is considered to be a perverse, a great sin, immoral and corrupting by the country's Islamic law. So in fact, part of the reason for me to choose the nightclub as a site to look at the expansion of neoliberalism in Iran in this project is this very fact that how a neoliberal solution focused on profit-making and the liberation of the market can alter and distort such basic rights and fundamental freedoms like the right to dancing and listening to music. So Disco Islam claims to have commissioned the highest-ranked Silicon Valley prodigies to invent a virtual reality technology that morphs the human body into genderless avatars to make sure that bodily excitement at Disco Islam is avoided at all costs. IBM, Spotify, and Google have also teamed up to make a bespoke artificial intelligence censorship software for Disco Islam, which generates music that is Iranian in nature, Islamic by law, and global in quality. So as you can see here, a mix of neoliberal market ideology, along with Silicon Valley technologies, is used to basically hollow the clubbing activity out of any of its core values and liberating qualities, to yet again bring into existence this contradiction or the oxymoron that the Disco Islam is, this Islamic nightclub from a fully neoliberal Middle Eastern future.
As the natural order of things has essentially taken its toll in the region, in form of poverty, homelessness and crime, we have invested ever more to protect the absolute right of our consumers to safety and security.
And the final part of the film touches upon some other problems that are again usually associated with the implementation of neoliberal policies. Problems like socioeconomic disparities, precarity, and the transition to a police state. So here the film claims that issues such as poverty, homelessness, and crime are part of the natural order of things, and they don't have anything to do with neoliberal policies such as privatization, austerity, and deregulation. As a solution to deal with these problems, ultra-advanced killer drones have been commissioned to hover around the site of Disco Islam to, as mentioned again in the film, protect the absolute right of the consumers to safety and security. There's also a claim about the nightclub contributing to the local economy of the region by providing hundreds of unpaid internship positions where people can work alongside drones, robots, machines, and AI for free. Another senseless and empty claim by this neoliberal Disco Islam nightclub. So the Disco Islam film ultimately concludes with an anecdotal message and a phony call to action wrapped in innocent positivity, the type that is quite common within the corporate culture. It says, you can look at these ancient deserts and see nothing but trouble, or you can see nothing to hold you back. No restrictions, no divisions, no excuses, just endless potential for freedom and trade. Words that I've actually taken out of a corporate video made about the Saudi Arabia City of Future Neon project, which is basically a futuristic mega eco-city financed by an increased fossil fuel production and catering mainly to the rich. So these final words ultimately make it crystal clear that the main aspiration, intention, and goal in the making of this high-end Disco Islam nightclub is basically the expansion of the global neoliberal project of free market capitalism even if it comes at the cost of the environment, socioeconomic disparities, censorship, human rights violations of the Middle Eastern authoritarian states, and so on.
And this is why, gentlemen and ladies, that I would like to thank you all for joining me in making this Iranian Islamic brand new liberal dream to make Disco Islam a reality.
Yes, thank you very much for listening, and thank you. Thank you, thanks. If there are any questions, I would also be more than happy to. Yes, go ahead, please.
It's very boring, thank you.
Thank you.
But I'm struggling to understand what is futuristic about this. Because by the example you mentioned in the video, there's nothing futuristic. You have a riddle like this.
Yeah, so I think like the futuristic element is basically mainly finds its meaning from a global south point of view. So basically, I mean, I left Iran when I was 27, and many of the things that I've experienced in the past like 10 years of my life here in the UK didn't exist and still don't exist in Iran. But at the time, I could see, and later on with you know, like basically after you know, the Iranian the presidency of the Iranian President Rouhani happened, you could see some of the kind of like more explicit neoliberal policies actually being taken on and then implemented. And yeah, I think like to a certain extent, it is true that it's a future for like from a global south point of view, because obviously things are different in the global south. But yeah, I think like still sort of like we are still maybe not like in a sort of era where, you know, some of the things that are mentioned in the film are you know, like being implemented that outrightly, you know, like the use of killer drones to protect, like, you know, the area around this. But yeah, we're very close, very close. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Any more questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Was the one? Oh, yes, please. Sorry. Hello.
I'm hearing it too. So my question is more about the form rather than the content. And when I, for the first time, when I read the title of the book, Disco Islam, so I thought that there would be lots of kind of music references to that context. But I can see that in Disco Islam there are lots of visual elements that refer to Iran, but not music. And I'm just wondering that why did you choose this?
So why you can't see much of the Iranian basically sound cultures in the music? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in terms of your selection, the selection of the music, I'm just wondering because lots of references to this ritual kind of things like Muharram and those sort of things that also gives us this kind of idea of disco.
That's right. Yeah.
Specifically in our generation. And I thought that you probably intentionally refused to use those sort of references. Wondering.
Is it in regards of the music that I've used here? Yeah, what I mean, like the music actually kind of sort of like clearly uses a melody which is very Middle Eastern. Yeah, I could even sort of make a confession here that I kind of like, I think I was listening to, for inspiration, to, you know, like Iranian music, and there was one, I think, Bada Wada Mubarak Bada, which is a wedding song, which is a very famous wedding song. Yeah, and I think like that melody kind of like, that was one of the things that I was thinking that, this is actually a very nice melody, and I used that. But yeah, maybe like, it could have been more kind of like sort of like bringing in elements from like Iranian pop culture and stuff like that. And you must be Azad, by the way, I guess. No? Yeah, good to see you again. This light is very strong here, so I can hardly see. But does that give you the answer that?
Yeah, so we can continue this conversation, but I thought that you intentionally try to avoid a sort of kind of religious kind of music that probably in this context would have those sort of this sort of idea of future that if you put those sort of tradition.
Yes.
Like, but thought you might have a specific kind of reason not using that.
No, that's a very interesting point, actually. That's a very interesting point that, maybe I wasn't quite like thinking about it the way that you're actually sort of like talking about it now. But yeah, I could have that in mind, and maybe try to use it in future projects. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much.